Have you ever wondered, what if Mihawk met Zoro like Shanks met Luffy? Zoro literally grew up like a single bird since he was a kid. If he actually had a powerful mentor like Mihawk, would he surpass every single swordsman in the series? Or will he betray Luffy and collect his bounty as he doesn't need anyone because of his intense strength? Let's dive into it. Well, after Kuina's death, Zoro was literally broken. He lost his first friend and could help himself coming out of that nightmare. He decides to train like a monster, so in the future he can protect his loved ones. So, when he does come out of his comfort zone and is building his skills like an adult at the age of just 6, a 6 feet tall man with a black outfit comes walking towards him. Zoro seeing him for the first time was so shocking. As we all know about Mihawk and his coolness, Zoro instantly was impressed by his presence and style. Looking at Mihawk's huge legendary katana, Zoro asks him, "Are you a swordsman?" Mihawk slightly smiles and says, "Yes, I am." Zoro instantly falls on his knees and begs Mihawk to make him his pupil. We see Zoro was also trained by Mihawk in the original series as well, but he was 21 years old, which is a very big age. But here we see Mihawk accepting Zoro as his student when he was just 6. But Mihawk here tells Zoro that he will only train him for just 3 months as he can't stay with him forever in the Shimotsuki village. Zoro begs him again and tells him that 3 months is not enough to make him stronger. Mihawk asks him, "How much stronger do you want to become, young man?" Zoro replies, "As strong as that, I can defeat you." These words of Zoro literally shocks Mihawk. Mihawk sees a huge potential in this kid, so he smiles again and prolongs his training period from 3 months to 1 year. Mihawk also says that he will teach him a secret technique which very few people in this world can use, and we call this technique as haki, with which we can transform your body and swords stronger than any metal in this world. Zoro was so amazed. At the very first month of training, Zoro's body already started changing. His shoulders transformed wider, and his arms were as strong as an average adult at that young age. Zoro now can easily lift 110 pounds with his single arm. If he can do this in just 1 month of training, just imagine what he could do if he completes 1 year of training with Mihawk. Now, after 6 months, spending around Zoro, Mihawk's bond with him became just like Shanks and Luffy's bond. And after 1 year of training, Zoro is now the youngest haki user. He can now wipe out a squad of marine soldiers all by himself. Now it's time for Mihawk to leave the Shimotsuki village and Zoro as well. Zoro was so emotional that he directly asked Mihawk to take him along with him. Mihawk comes to Zoro and gives him his black hat and says, "I'm always alone in my life. Make sure you don't be like me. Make good friends around you, and this time make sure you protect them. And return my black hat when you surpass me," and becomes the world's strongest swordsman. Zoro cries with his happiness, just like Luffy cried when he was saying his goodbye to Shanks. After 16 years, Zoro now is a dangerous bounty hunter. Everyone in the East Blue is afraid of him. When Helmeppo requests Morgan to have a bounty hunter arrested and be starved for a month, we see Luffy save Zoro in the original series. But here, Zoro would wipe everyone alone single-handedly without anyone's help. And when Luffy and Kobe arrive at the Marine's place to recruit Zoro, Luffy sees everyone wiped out and Zoro alone standing in the middle of the place. Zoro ties up Morgan and his son with the ropes on the wooden plaque, to which they plan to tie up Zoro. As we all know about Luffy, he couldn't control his laugh after seeing that. Zoro asks Luffy, "Who the hell are you? And why are you laughing like a fool?" Luffy replies, "I am Monkey D. Luffy, and I am going to be the king of the pirates, and I am here to recruit you as a swordsman for my crew." Zoro was so amazed with Luffy's daring that he can speak in front of a man who is actually a bounty hunter. Zoro asks Luffy, "Why should I join you?" Luffy replies, "I want to be friends with you and travel around the whole world, and I cannot become the king of the pirates without you." Zoro remembers the words of Mihawk in the past, where he said, "Make some good friends and protect them." So, Zoro leaves Morgan and his son tied up behind and instantly agrees to Luffy as his captain, having haki very early in the story. Zoro also teaches Luffy how to use haki. So, we see both Luffy and Zoro having haki in episode 3. With these overpowered skills at the very beginning of the story, they fill their crew even faster. We see Usopp and Sanji joining the crew as usual. But I don't think Nami is going to betray Luffy again in this timeline, because when she sees Luffy and Zoro's ultimate potential, she directly asks them to defeat Allrong and his team and free their village. So, she can join them without any troubles. We see Zoro was defeated by Arlong by ripping off the wounds in the original series. But here, Zoro would wipe everyone including Arlong much faster, even before Luffy arrived at the Arlong's territory. This makes Zoro the MVP of the arc, not Luffy. Now, building up half of the crew, they continue their journey to face stronger opponents. This time, facing Crocodile in the Arabasta Kingdom is not a big deal for Luffy and Zoro. So, with the help of haki, they can easily counter the attacks of sand. Luffy and Zoro would literally make a huge amount of strikes on Crocodile's body. Since Crocodile's body cannot use haki because of his sand abilities, we see a warlord going down in the hands of the deadly duo. Considering Robin's importance to become Pirate King, we see her joining the crew. Later in the Water 7 arc, Zoro would totally nerf the CP9, and this makes his bounty higher than his captain. At the Thriller Bark, now Luffy doesn't even need those 100 shadows to defeat Oars and Gecko Moria. So these two arcs would have wiped so easily, they would be drained when Kuma appeared that very morning. As we look back into the series, when he was about to take Luffy with him when everyone was outzoned except Zoro, he also made a strike on Kuma and stopped him to take away Luffy by sacrificing himself, taking all the pain that Luffy had. But in this case, Kuma couldn't even touch Luffy and his crew as they are far more stronger than Kuma. Identifying that Kuma was in support of Marines makes Zoro angrier. And we see a very deadly fight in between these two monsters. Despite having massive speed and abilities to teleport his opponents to the other islands, we see Zoro much faster than him. He exactly had a speed which we saw in the Wano arc when he fought Kaido. So, I think Kuma wounds need an appointment with a famous doctor to recover his wounds. This impresses Luffy and the other Straw Hats, and of course me. And there is a question for you guys. Would you like to eat a devil fruit if you're in the world of One Piece? Or would you train on your haki like our boy Zoro instead? Let me know in the comments section below. Moving on to the storyline, when they meet Rayleigh to get their ship coded so they can enter into the new world. While on the other side of the Sabaody, Kizaru and an army of marine soldiers come to capture the Straw Hats. Kuma being defeated much earlier, there is no one who can teleport Luffy and his crewmates to the other islands. Having Haki Zoro can help to block the attacks of Kizaru, where on the other side, Straw Hats tries to get into their coded ship. After buying so much time, everyone's got into the ship, except for Zoro and Luffy. This is the time where we see a former crewmate of the Pirate King in the action. Yes, I am talking about Silver's Rayleigh. He helps Luffy and Zoro to get into their ship as well by switching the fight. So, we don't see Straw Hats splitting up, and we have no time skip here. After hearing about Ace's execution, we might not see Luffy sneaking into the prison, but he directly goes to the Marineford at the time of execution, exactly like Whitebeard. This is the time when Zoro sees his mentor Mihawk fighting alongside the Marines. Zoro somehow goes to Mihawk and tells him happily that he had made some good friends and now became a vice captain of a pirate crew. He also tells him that Ace is his captain's brother, and they don't want to see him executed. This makes Mihawk think for a while, but later he agrees to Zoro to save Ace, because we all know how much he loves Zoro. Mihawk betraying the Marines is a huge loss for the Marines, and especially it's the biggest nightmare, even for the admirals. In my opinion, he can take out each admiral when it comes to one-on-one fights. So, Mihawk and Zoro decide to stop Akainu and Kuzan, and on the other side, Whitebeard and his crew takes on the army, and remaining one Admiral Kizaru. So we easily see that it's an upper hand for the pirates here. In the gap of this battlefield, Luffy faces his grandfather Garp and frees Ace's handcuffs. So, thanks to Mihawk, Ace is not nerfed to be a donut, but he did escape now successfully. After clearing the battlefield, we see Zoro returning his black hat to his mentor Mihawk, as he is now one of the strongest swordsmen around the world. Mihawk sees his pupil being transformed from a depressed kid to a happy young man who has a lot of trustworthy friends around him. So, as this story is only about Mihawk and Zoro, I think we don't get into Luffy's life, as we all know. He's going to be the greatest pirate in every what-if scenario. Hope you all enjoyed this roller coaster ride of Zoro. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell icon.